7 now. To hear the call to this call, press 8 now.
And the only place that I ever felt that he was safe was in jail. And it was a relief to me as a parent to have him in jail.
We was getting kicked out of group all the time, and we was always teaming up against other little squares up in there, and that's just how we was doing it.
Another day, another dollar.
Comes out and he's got his diamonds on, he's got his grill, and I said, Wayne, you know, the team is telling me that you're dealing. There's a federal investigation. The feds are looking at you.
Another day, another dollar.
He was the guy that was having the money, man, and having holes, and he was, you know, doing this and that, and, you know, I said, wow, this guy's for real.
And don't speak about what you see.
He once appeared in court with what he claims was a real mink coat. I think we thought it might be a pimp coat.
When the cops showed up at my house, it was like 8 o'clock the next morning. The SWAT team was up and down my whole entire block.
I'm gonna get at you tomorrow, okay? Make sure you have the rest of that money for me. Go.
It's about the money and the power.
My name's Mac Wayne. I first met Mac Wayne when he shot Mac Wayne, and I kind of awoke from then. My childhood was pretty messed up. You know, I been told I wasn't given a chance. I kind of learned later that's what it was. I used to be homeless a lot when I was a kid. You know, everybody likes to reflect on the Wayne that was, you know, having money and doing big old things, but how I even accomplished that was I tried to keep track on that kid that was homeless and didn't have nothing and nobody.
When Wayne was born, his dad left town like a week after I got out of the hospital, saying it wasn't his kid, he wanted nothing to do with it. And he left. I had almost died having Wayne.
For 27 years, Mac Wayne's mom, Luann, has told him that his dad left town when Wayne was born. After the filming of this documentary, though, Wayne found out the truth. His mom was a prostitute, and Wayne was born a trick baby. Therefore, his dad's identity will never be known.
I always reflect off this time I was sitting on the side of this house waiting for my foster dad to go to work so I could go knock on the window and sneak in and have some place to sleep or eat some food or whatever, take a shower and whatnot. And I remember I was sitting there and I had a stolen coat on, some stolen cigarettes that I'd never buy if I had a chance to buy some cigarettes, and stolen change out of cars and houses, and, you know, doing all that kind of young little teenage hoodlum stuff. And I always have this thought when I was sitting there, and I remember thinking, man, I ain't never gonna be nothing. My mom ain't nothing. She ain't never gonna have nothing. I ain't got nothing for family.
There was snow on the ground. I went out to dump my trash. I had an old pill bug trailer sitting around on the side of the house. And I went out there and I dumped my trash, and I turned to come back in, and I saw the trailer move. And I thought that was pretty odd. And I walked over and I cracked the door open thinking there was a dog or something had gotten in there somehow. And there laying on the ground was a skinny little short-haired 13-year-old underneath a leather jacket, shivering his little head off. It didn't take me much to realize that Mac was, at that time, he'd been kicked out of his house.
Things kept getting worse with Llewellyn's drinking, and she was doing drugs and lying, cheating, stealing, and we tried to distance ourselves from her for a little bit.
Because of his mom's drug use and alcoholism, Wayne's childhood was rarely easy and never consistent. As a result of frequent relocation, Almost all of Wayne's early belongings and memorabilia was lost or destroyed, including pictures, home videos, school records, and documents.
I had been drinking a lot when he was younger and went into treatment, and so that was when Wayne kind of went off the deep end, because up until then he was a pretty good kid.
But I'd also known that this kid was a real rascal. Gotten in more trouble than 5 kids I knew his age. But a lot of this was rebellion.
I met Wayne when he was 11 years old. His mom was in drug rehab, and I was fulfilling an internship for my master's degree program. And his mom was in the program, and it was an interesting time because Wayne was just this little scrappy guy running the play yard, and lots of complaints about Wayne's behavior. It rose to the level to where he had to be put in a psychiatric facility for young children.
They showed me this picture he drew while he was in there, and it was this messy crayon picture, and it had these 2 little stick figures, and one was obviously me with the long hair, and one was him, and the one of him had this knife, and it said, "The bitch," pointing to me, and the other one said, "My knife," pointing to the knife, and then this like red scribble, angry scribble at my throat, and it said, "Her blood."
We was only locked up with each other for a little bit of time, but we had, we was in group drug and alcohol classes, and we was getting kicked out of group all the time, and we was always, teaming up against other little squares up in there, and that's just how we was doing it.
And the only place that I ever felt that he was safe was in jail, and it was a relief to me as a parent to have him in jail. And until years later, when I went to jail, did I realize how bad of a place it was.
So he does his little time, and he gets out, and at that time they had like this youth at risk. You pick up the phone, your parents would dime you out in a heartbeat. And that's just kind of like, how him and his mom's relationship was. It was very, very sticky.
The relationship with his mom was very difficult. Mom was very afraid of Wayne, couldn't control Wayne.
I used to work in a sporting goods store, and I sold guns and I collected guns, and I would go shoot guns and thought I was, safe with them and everything, and had them all up high, and was at work one day and came home and found out that my 9-year-old son and his friend were running around in North Everett with a briefcase full of little plastic Ziploc baggies full of flour and sugar in the briefcase with my loaded 9mm playing drug dealer.
Wayne's early interest in guns and drugs would eventually transcend into his teenage years and beyond.
He comes over to my house, and he's got this gun, and he's like, "Look what we got," And I never been afraid of guns, Like I said, I collected guns, shot guns, sold guns. And he comes in showing, 17 years old and staying with his friend Julius and telling me, "Look what we just got." And I just had this whole feeling all over my body of like this fear. And I'm like, "Get that out of here, just get it away." And he left, because at that point he was coming over to my house. That was when he was out on warrant because he was in youth drug court, cut off his ankle bracelet again, and was on the run.
Times just were kind of hard, man, and I was on the run, and I was a 17-year-old boy, and I shot myself in the head with a pistol, and it wasn't Russian roulette. It wasn't none of that. It was a one-shot gun, and I just did it, just put it to my head, blow. And I did it because I wanted the guy in front of me to know if he was there to, to jack me. His name was Jack. And I just remember saying, "You trying to jack me, Jack?" Blow. And I wanted him to know if he was there to do anything to me, I'd shoot him in his head. So I, did the weirdo move and gave him an example right in his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the day Wayne was shot, that evening I was home studying for my CCNA, And it was probably 12 at night or something like that. And phone rings, and it was Wayne's friend Julius telling me that he said, don't worry, he's okay, Wayne's been shot, or something like that. And I'm like, where? And he's like, shot in the head, but he's okay, he's talking. And I'm like, well, where is he? And he's like, well, the helicopter came and got him.
All I hear is this pop. I'm planning on going in there, seeing Wayne with his hands up, saying, man, I'm sorry, fucking around like he always does. But sure enough, that wasn't the case. As far as walking in the room, I had to walk all the way in the room to figure out what happened. While I'm coming in the room, Jack is running out of the room. I asked him what the fuck happened. He said Wayne just shot himself in the fucking head. And I'm not even believing him. So I walk around the corner, man's legs is just kicking. I look, and I'm trying, and at this point, he has his hands like this. He pulls back his hands and the blood's just squirting.
I'm bleeding out the side of my head, squirting out of my face, swelled up like this eye's hanging out of my face, and I'm spitting up blood, and blood's coming out my nose, out my ears, and I just remember starting to get real nauseous, like as nauseous as you could possibly feel for being alive, and then almost feeling like you're gonna die. And I remember a voice just telling me, shut up, you ain't gonna die, and I was just grabbing, I remember it was so swollen, and I start going into like a little seizure.
I made sure he was still conscious, and I ran downstairs, opened the door. I look down towards Broadway, which is to my left, and I don't see nothing. I look to the right, and the guy is in motherfucking military formation with an AR-15 pointed straight at my shit, telling me to get on the ground. I don't really care at this point. I just want him to get upstairs and make sure he's all right. The man's been running on warrants for 9-10 months, so I'm prone to saying his fake name. So I'm still trying to cover him up, but I know that my man's in trouble.
I remember it was fucked up because I remember all the shit that had happened, and I was just worried because when they had me in the ambulance, they would take his temperature, and they couldn't do it from the mouth or nothing, so they stuck it in my ass, and I'm sitting there blind, sitting there thinking, that's all I'm worried about. Oh my God, no, you ain't. And I was passed out, and I was like slipping out of it, but I just remember thinking, what the fuck are they doing? You know what I'm saying? That was all I was worried about, laying on a stretcher.
It could be the last time that I see him. And so I go in the back, and I don't know where the strength came from, but I just stopped crying. And he was laying on a table, and he had like tubes in him and everything, so I'm telling him, I love you, Wayne, it's gonna be okay, and they're like, okay, we gotta take him now, and they're like taking him and herding me out, and it was like, I've always watched movies where people they're acting, and they're like, oh, and they fall down, and I always think, oh wow, drama, but I'll tell you, it was like somebody just went boom, and punched me in the stomach, and I was like, I was like choking on crying, couldn't breathe, and I literally like fell.
No one really knows if he's even gonna survive. I end up walking out the hall, and I go into this other part of the hospital, my mom's trying to follow me, trying to hold her back. And I walk through the room, and I happen to see this bed, and got blood on the bed right where a head would be. And I just broke at that point, because it was reality.
Calls me in this room and tells me that the eye's atrophying, it's shrinking. And so I call the doctor, rushing down there, and that's when we find out that he was going to be blind, 100%.
Mac Wayne, E40, Ziplocs, man.
At the point in his life when most people would have lost the battle with adversity and pain, Wayne somehow found the motivation to rise above his hardships and become more than a statistic.
I'm George Bowden, and I'm a judge in Snohomish County Superior Court in Washington, which is centered in Everett, north of Seattle. And I got to know Mac Wayne in April of 2008 when he began with my adult drug treatment court program. Wayne, it seems, had been in a vehicle, I think in April of 2007 up in Marysville, when citizens walking by reported to police that it looked like the folks in the vehicle were doing drugs. And police stopped by. Wayne was in the passenger seat, and the report indicates when they rolled down the window, marijuana smoke billowed out like a Cheech and Chong movie. And after testing, Wayne was arrested at the scene, and cocaine and black tar heroin were found in his possession. He was charged the following fall. I
get a call from Wayne's mom that Wayne's been arrested on a felony charge. She's really afraid for him. He's blind, he's in jail, and she just doesn't know what to do. I told her about the adult drug court, and to have Wayne talk to his defense attorney about that he would be appointed one. And so Wayne did, apparently.
During the time that Mac Wayne was in drug court with us, I was his attorney. I represented everyone who was in the drug court program. Essentially, Wayne was represented by our office, and then he entered the program. He came in, he was found eligible. And initially when he came in, I think people were a little tentative because he had kind of a bad criminal history coming in. And a couple of people knew him from juvenile drug court, where he'd been previously, and he'd been in the juvenile system.
June of 2008, he was back using drugs, which were tested on his random UAs. He went back to jail for 7 days, then 10 days. And one of the problems with Wayne was that he wasn't acknowledging his ongoing drug use.
They knew that he was out there doing things he probably shouldn't have been doing. We couldn't really prove it. And Wayne had drawn a couple positive UAs.
And his explanation for why he came up positive was something that I could not float to the drug court team. Essentially, his explanation was, well, I've been dealing, and I had a large amount of cocaine, and I needed to test it to make sure that it was good. So I stuck my finger in it, and I licked it, and that's the only way that the cocaine could have gotten into my system. And I said, Wayne, that may be a great explanation for why you didn't use, but I cannot possibly pitch that explanation to the drug court team, because quite honestly, using in this context is far less a crime than dealing.
The reason why I ended up sticking with crack and running with crack all the way was because, I just would, get someone to cook it, and that would be about it. And they'd serve it to me. I'd get it all the way cooked up, break it up, and I could just touch it. And I knew from back when I could see from being in it as a kid, selling little 8 balls and quarter ounces, running up and down Broadway and shit, thinking I was balling or whatever. But little 20 stones, 20 stone, 50 stones, 50 stone. Throughout time, 8 balls, 3.5. End up getting a talking scale and some more shit. But the reason why is because when you gotta weigh up a bunch of weed and a bunch of powder and a bunch of shit like that, man, shit comes up missing sometimes when you're around some motherfuckers that ain't so solid when you blind. You know what I mean?
I'm Mac Wayne's probably one of his main drivers for about 3 or 4 years. And it was fun, but a lot of times it was a pain in the ass. There's so much to say, it's hard for me to remember, but he would always on the go, always thinking, always had missions to accomplish, I respected him for that. I always took care of him when I could. We just traveled and around town and everything like that. We'd have like 4 or 5 police on our ass, and we'd still be dealing. He didn't know it, but we were doing it right next to cops and stuff like that, because I wasn't afraid of it.
I first heard about Mac Wayne through a mutual friend of ours, Ryan, and he told me that he had a hookup. He had a good hookup, and it was a blind guy. And I'm going, what? How's a blind guy gonna be selling dope, right? Well, sure as shit, here comes Shar and Ryan, Mac Wayne in the back of the car. He came out to Lake Goodwin, where a mutual friend of ours, Christine Demert, who's now passed away. And I was amazed. Here's Mac Wayne handing out stones, and he was serving great.
That's where the drug dealing came in, man, because it was, who does what. I was buying a hella weed, and people were coming to smoke with me, so I started with that. You know, I'd been ran out the prescriptions for the pills to buy the weed, and you know, started using the weed and went running around with my guys all over the place, living at their houses and staying with them. And you know, I just kept good conversation to bounce around places I need to go, and everybody wanted to see the blind guy, how he was doing. He was doing fucking all right if he had some money, you know what I mean? And there I was, big smiles and open pockets, you feel me? And so I started with the weed. People who do weed start branching off to coke. You snort coke, hey, what you want? You do anything, you know? I developed nothing but to do with time to hustle, you know, and that's what I did.
The Washington high-intensity drug trafficking area region remains a national level transit, source, and distribution center for illicit drugs, especially cocaine, locally produced marijuana, domestic and imported methamphetamine, and MDMA. Washington spent more than $50 million in 2004 to deal with meth, including prison costs, foster care, treatment, enforcement, and cleanup.
Yeah, what's up, man? You know, let me start it over. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, man, so, you know, I'm blind. That's how I get around. You know, I got people driving me around. You know, this window right here is a famous window, man. A lot of cocaine and crack form went out this window, you know what I mean? Lots of $100 bills came in, lots went in, lots went out, you know what I mean? And the trunk of this very car we in right now that has so much shit in it, you know what I mean? You wouldn't even believe me if I told you, but you know, this is how I get around, man. You know, just keep it pushing, man. You know what I mean? In the back seat, you feel me?
Don't forget, sometimes you crawled into the trunk and drove around.
Sometimes I used to crawl into
the trunk with a warrant.
I did that plenty of times in plenty different cars, man. That's one of my systems. Was when you got a warrant, you know what I mean? You got to stay on the low key. You know what I mean? So I used to ride in the trunk.
This is one of the spots out here on the Tulalip Reservation. Unfortunately, Wayne isn't allowed out here, so I'm giving you guys a tour of the res. Anyways, this is one of the spots he's not allowed. Ready?
Yep.
Follow me for a second. I'm going to show you what kind of spot we used to be at. The warning signs on the front door and the hundreds and hundreds of beer cans. They got the plate cleaned. Keep in mind the shit's cleaned up now too, but take a look at it. Police stick around here, they come through all the time. Look at the beer cans over the side. Keep in mind it used to be 1,000 times that bad. Yeah, cut it.
You know, as a defense attorney, it wasn't difficult to defend him. It wasn't hard because I basically said, how is this possible? I mean, really, how is the blind guy going to be slaying? Anyone could rip him off. Anybody. I mean, he has to trust the people around him 100%, and one of these days, that person's just going to say, screw you, I don't need you here.
Hello, what's up? You still around the corner, my dude? All right, so what was that? How much did you want? Okay, yep. All right, I got that. I got those too. I mean, you know, people always say, you know, you get robbed if you was blind. I mean, I've come up short a few times, but I ain't never been robbed up front, not once. I've been took for a few packs in some weird, awkward ways, but you know, I mean, a lot of it, like for instance, like the main portion of where I get my money, like dealing with straight crackheads, was I would just manipulate their addiction against them. Like if they was driving me around, they were my eyes that day. And I was giving them free crack and they wanted to befriend me. So I was using their wanting to be my friend and their addiction all in one to, you know, when someone comes and gives me something at the window, I'm saying, what's this before I hand it over? He wants to be the cool guy to me that's representing the people in his life that, oh, I'd never take from a blind guy, you know, who probably is going to steal from me the next day when he's at the window.
And I had to go over to his apartment, knocked on the door. Door open, pitch black inside. I walked in, not sure what to expect because it was my first time. And he goes, well, okay, here you go, there you go, it's fine. Now, can you do me a favor? And boy, I backed up. I didn't know what to do. And he pointed water bills at me, and can you tell me what denomination that is? What that is? And I said, well, I could if I could see it. He said, that's my problem.
But, you know, I'd check it, what's this, you know what I mean? Put it in my pocket, and I wouldn't even trust what they said, and put it in my fifth pocket, and then another pocket, and then, you know, you just got separate pockets, and, you know, you memorize who was in what pocket. And then if it wasn't what it was, you know, what you had to do was you go find them and you do some real act of violence to them, you know? I mean, it sounds rough, it sounds, you know, irrational. Sometimes it was real irrational. I shouldn't have been loud in that spot sometimes. I shouldn't have been this in that spot, or over here. I shouldn't have been punching this guy, or, you know what I mean? And, you know, just, you know, it was definitely wild.
Mac's in the doorway standing in front of me, and I come up to him like this, and have my hand out, and I'm getting my shit. And the other dude that owed him money comes up behind me and starts to talk to him about how he didn't have the $10 extra or whatever. And Mac just throws a punch, just throws a right hand right across, got me right in the mouth and the nose, fattened my lip, broke my nose. And then he goes over me, just right over me, and grabs the dude by the neck, takes him down onto the floor, grabs his throat. His fingers are like almost touching around the dude's throat. Saying, you motherfucker, you can't rob from me, you can't steal from me. What the fuck do you think? I'm gonna come over here and break out every goddamn window in your house?
I got one time, the Mexican, he was so in with the Mexican mafia that he had to get out of town fast, so he met up with me, and I had a bunch of saran wrap, because, you know, a lot of cocaine from Mexicans comes wrapped, excess saran wrap out of this world. And so I get finally to the bottom of it after he's gone and all that, and it's a fucking taco inside this damn saran wrap. And I call my guy and I'm like, man, I just bought a fucking taco for thousands and thousands of dollars. And this motherfucker said, well, did you eat it?
Boy, we meet some gnarly people, some of the people I, you know, hope never see again, but, you know, they were some wild people. And they were sitting and waiting, and he'd have them lined up. First time I met Mac Wayne, I was with this girl. She was like 19, I think, and I was probably around 49 or 50. He had a tree, he had everybody waiting, and he'd drive by, and everybody following. There's like 7 cars following him. He'd drive down the road, turn around, and hit everybody's window for whatever they wanted right there. And it was like a 5-minute deal. And I kind of felt bad for the guy, because, you know, it was kind of amazing the way he was doing this stuff. I mean, who would expect, you know, suspect him of doing that?
Him and these guys were pretty much going to try to take over the drug industry or whatever in this area, you know. It's like they had certain guys handling certain kind of drugs, and, you know, they each had like their divisions. They were like almost like this business incorporated, you know. People out after them for doing this, and it's just getting so crazy.
He comes up to me with a lot of money, you know, and just wanted me to hang on to it for him. And so, you know, all right, I'll hang on to it for him. Until my wife found out, and she didn't want anything to do with it. So I had to call him up and say, Wayne, unless you got some way to show that this has been made legitimately, I'm not going to hang on to your money. Of course, I don't think he could have proved that. But so I had to give it back to him.
And I remember Wayne comes out, and he's dressed like he's always dressed to the nines. He's got his diamonds on. He's got his grill. And I said, Wayne, you know, the team is telling me that you're dealing. There's a federal investigation, that the feds are looking at you. And he's like, what? Me? No way. Gabe, that's ridiculous. I would never do that. And then within that conversation, maybe a minute and a half later, he said, you got any friends who private lawyers who work on retainer that I could like pay them? And I was just, you know, I wanted to believe Wayne, but once he started talking about getting a lawyer on retainer, I was suddenly like, for what, Wayne? Well, just in case some of my other friends get in some trouble and the cops are lying on them.
When I woke up to my mom in the world blind, she was shooting up heroin and snorting meth and shit. I ain't gonna lie, sometimes I was selling it to her. You know what I'm saying? Shit. I mean, I was. You know. she went out the deep end pretty far, you know. Her and her boyfriend stole some money from me. You know, it's a pretty fucked up feeling too though when you're driving around in a car with a gun and you're really contemplating drive-by shooting your mom's house, like really like, it's kind of like really like they say, like a demon and an angel on your shoulder. One's going, man, what are you doing? This is the craziest shit in the world. What the fuck is wrong with you, Wayne? And this guy's going, man, that bitch ain't your mom. She stole all your motherfucking shit and just let that dude steal your motherfucking money, man. Fuck her, fuck him, kill them all. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it might sound whatever. Some people might talk like that. Sometimes you ain't gonna hear me talk too much like that throughout this unless it was a situation where, you know, hey, your mom stole money from you and her boyfriend shot it up in their arms, you know? Fucked me up, you know what I mean?
Although he lost his sense of sight, those closest to Wayne share the belief that being shot in the head was in many ways beneficial.
I remember saying to my boy the night I was told that he was in the hospital and they didn't know if he was really gonna make it or not. And I was very angry and I said, this poor child, maybe now that he has gone blind, he will see.
And to be honest with you, I think him getting shot probably saved his life. I think he'd be dead by now if he didn't. But even after he was shot, you know, he was still totally out of control.
I remember going over to his house once, and I walk in, and there's people in the living room and stuff, and they were armed. I walk into his room and he's like wearing this bulletproof vest. He's got a 40 Glock, I think, in his lap. Another gun tucked under the mattress next to him, and right across the dresser is another, I think it was like a MAC-10 or something, I don't remember. And I'm like, oh my God, this is out of control. And he's like nervous.
Yeah, the beginning stages was pretty fucked up. I used to sleep on the bedroom floor. So that way I know if anyone was to open up the door, you know, I'd be laying right there to be able to catch the door and be able to blow their chest out their back. And it'd be good. I had lots and lots of guns. I'm sure people were probably really tripping what was wrong with me, because here's this dude who just shot himself.
Don't get it twisted. I'm gonna tell you, first time I knocked at this motherfucker door, boy, the boy was on one knee with a cater, talking about come in. So I mean, shit, you try him if you want to. You know, like, just for real. Like,
Machine gun Kelly.
yeah, another thing, let's get real, like, on some real shit.
Yeah.
The last 6 years, every piece of artillery that came from Cuzzo. I'm talking about for the low. On some real shit.
He'd always walk around with this entourage of thugs, and it was pretty bad to where one of Llewellyn's boyfriends put a restraining order out on him, on a blind guy, because he's so afraid of him.
My son finally shows up to threatening to kill this guy, and this guy is so scared, goes running off to his daddy and mommy, and you know, portraying Wayne as something, well, that he kind of was, thug, ready to kill him.
We was in a spot, and I remember it was the spot where things was happening, and people was coming in and people was going out, and it was actually a place where you was not supposed to have a whole bunch of stuff, right? And just for some reason, we had a whole bunch of shit that was there that wasn't supposed to be there. And I had just got out the pen. I'm all institutionalized still. I'm evaluating the situation. I'm calculating how many years we could really get if they just happen to run up in here, to the point he's like, I don't even care. I'm going hard, I gotta get this music. And I'm like, man, but do we have to have all this shit upstairs while we doing it though? You know, convince them to get inside of a little Volkswagen Bug and stuff it full of the most illegal shit in the world.
The very first Section 8 house I had, they do a yearly inspection. And I remember, so we pulled up the mattress and stuffed the whole entire queen size bed mattress with MAC-10s and extra clips and 9mm and AKs and Romanian SKSs and 12 gauges and just the whole queen size bed just loaded from across all the way from side to side, just full of everything you could think of, and the mattress put back on, and then, you know, the bed made and all that, because it was in Section 8 inspection time. And So the guy comes in and he's got his little clipboard and he's, you know, well, it looks nice, guys, you know, and this motherfucker plops down on the bed. And he sits down on the bed like, oh, what a comfy bed. And I just remember being like, oh my God, get up now. And he got up and it was good. One of my many millions of close calls.
He makes a plan. He says, let's go to California. And I said, where at? Oakland. And about a 10-minute answer. You know, I said, okay, let's do it. It's a long story, but I don't know, 1,800 miles, 2,000. I drive it at night. And Wayne was always a night person. I mean, he didn't know his hours. So I drive from, say, 6 o'clock till noon the next day, having a bunch of, he'd give me about a quarter ounce, about $200 worth, and I drive to Oakland.
My partner E, man, the first time I ever went and got a brick from this motherfucker, I knew him for probably about a fucking week. I'm in East Oakland in the hills where on the American Gangster, they're saying this is where they were dumping the bodies. And I'm in the middle of the shit with this guy with my big fat roll of cash and all that shit. And this is OG motherfucking gangster motherfucker. So I'm, you know what I mean? But just know for people, I don't give a fuck about all that shit.
Took him to Oakland a couple times, you know, stepped his game up, you know what I mean? So he can do his thing. Met E rolling, you feel me? And then rolling pushed that hard line on him, you feel me? And ever since then, the man's been automatically just game related, man. He soaked it up, man, like a sponge, man. You know what I mean? From the Northwest down to Oakland, California, man. The blind man's out there doing it, man. The most grimiest spots, man, you feel me? And motherfuckers respecting from all over, man. You feel me? Real timers respect this man in Oakland, man. And I say a lot.
You can kiss my ass with that gangster shit, whatever, but at the same time, I was on top of the hill, you know what I'm saying? And he was there, and he ain't no sucker, and he don't seem like a sucker, and he don't sound like a sucker, and we're not in suckling, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I thought for sure that was it. I just knew that I was gonna die.
Before we go to Oakland, he'd have like a briefcase, but he'd have it in rubber bands, and he'd have like thousands of dollars in 20s and 10s and 5s. And I have to go to the banks and get it all done, so he'd have just nothing but hundreds. And so we hit like 4 or 5 banks. We'd have like 14 grand. We're riding around town with all that money on them. I could have just left them at McDonald's or something, you know, and lived high on the hog. But no, I took care of them, you know.
Washington State had the highest amount of federal drug seizures of methamphetamine in the Pacific region. Federal law enforcement in 2003 seized 205.7 kilograms of methamphetamine in Washington, compared to 40.4 in Oregon and 78.0 in California.
It's amazing to me that where he's come from as a kid and the strong person that he's grown into, whether he, you know, whatever direction he's going, I mean, shady shit, whatever, you know, he's still a strong person. And let's put it this way, I'm not proud of some of the things he does, but what I am proud of is the business sense that he uses when he does this stuff.
You know, I even had a kid and he let the kid stay there, and you know, he's just a real good guy. Mac Wayne's like everybody's best friend, and that's just real. Everybody you talk to, they'll probably say, man, that's my best friend, because he's just like a genuine good guy. When I get out of the penitentiary for what I did, he was like, yeah, man, I'm on. I've been doing my thing. Here you go. You're my friend. I'm gonna shoot you some cheese. I'm gonna put you on. And you know, that's just how he was.
I will never say anything less than good things about him, because over the years, as things got not so good for me, he was always there. Sometimes more than my own children were.
I love him, and he's a good, kind-hearted man, no matter what image he tries to portray. That man has the kindest soul and the most giving heart I've ever seen in anybody. He's intelligent, loving, caring, and give you a shirt off his back. But don't fuck with him, man, because, you know, he'll take you down.
When I finally did meet Wayne, he was, you know, real down to earth and humble dude, and
you know, you could tell, man, there was just something about him, man. There was just some kind of a glow about him, man, where he wasn't gonna settle. He wasn't gonna take no for an answer. And, you know, that was kind of what, you know, drew us all together.
He doesn't, you know, belittle you or talk down to you, but he'll put you in your place when you need it. Believe that. He's very charming and driven, and I think that that's admirable.
Mac is the only white dude that's walked in my household, and my kids has embraced him as my friend. Like, you know, they didn't even know I had white friends.
Personally, when I met him, he seemed like a really nice guy. Very easy to talk to. You couldn't miss him, not only because, you know, he was blind, but the second reason was he'd always walk in with a girl on his arm. And it was usually a very pretty girl, and it was very rarely was it the same girl. So it's hard to miss the same guy coming time after time again to court every time with a different lady, and he'd stand there and he'd put his hand up on their shoulder and he'd follow them up to the bench when he'd go and talk to Judge Bowden.
There was some discussion in staffing that he should get a cane or perhaps a dog. I was worried that Mac Wayne might think it would be a drug-sniffing dog, and that's why he wasn't interested in a dog. He seemed to prefer to have young ladies show him around and act as his guide dogs.
Oh yeah, he had some girls working for him. He was a pimp, and we thought he was a pimp, you know. So, and he was. He'd have them all lined up, and he'd be getting them money. He'd be paying like 2-3 houses. He'd be paying for rent for them girls to stay in, buy them cars. And I don't think the boy even picked up a shovel in his life, you know, but he was making that money.
I don't know where he came up with the idea that from now on, if he's going to have women, they're going to be what he calls CNI bitches. And what a CNI bitch is pretty much is she hooks and is into distribution of products and basically hands all the money over to Wayne.
I was one of Mac Wayne's CNI bitches. I started hoeing for Wayne a few years ago. I know I used to hoe back in the day, and I didn't make any money. It was nothing but horrible experiences, people hurting me. And when I had realized what Mac Wayne did, that he was a pimp, since I had known him for some time, I decided that, you know, he would be who I could go to because I could trust him, and I knew that he was a decent human being.
Let me think, though. Met Wayne right before he turned 24 when I was living in Arizona. Has damaged goods. Basically, I was a CNI bitch, that's what we called it. Anybody who's trying to fuck with him, you're not ready.
Mac Wayne was he was definitely a ladies' man. He could talk his way out of anything. I could talk to girls. He had tactics for these girls. I think he could figure out someone's weakness and kind of get off in their brain. After he did his charm or kind of reeled him in a little bit, he take him to an Iraqi boot camp, per se.
He was the guy that was having the money, man, and having hoes, and he was, you know, doing this and that, and, you know, I said, wow, this guy's for real.
And he once appeared in court with what he claims was a real mink coat. I think we thought it might be a pimp coat, but because Wayne couldn't see too well, the quality of the fur coat seemed to leave something to be desired.
In terms of the way Wayne would come into court, he always had, you know, he had the grill. He'd come in sometimes with what he calls mink. Whether that thing was mink, I don't know. And in fact, my belief is that it was not a mink. It looked kind of crappy. He said he paid 15 grand for it. I always thought it was more like 15 bucks. But he did come in wearing the coat, and he did have the grill, and he had the bracelets and the diamonds and the jewelry.
Here I've been so diligent about being so fair to him, you know, making sure that, you know, all is fair in drug court, and he comes in a mink coat. And I'm thinking, Wayne, what are you doing?
I was in a situation that I was very unhappy in, and when I decided to come start working for him, he just kind of picked me up and put me down in a spot where, he could give me guidance and show me direction, so that way, I can make us both some money. So, and in that time, he makes sure that I'm taken care of, that my family's taken care of.
That was where I developed the CNI bitch, theory was, I remember there was this dude who used to come around, and I remember one time he was about to give us a ride, so I just went in his car, and I get in the car, and all of a sudden I hear this girl crying. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? Who's in there? Some girl in there crying, telling me, he said, I couldn't come in and be around you guys. I said, oh, is that right? So, how that went. Ended up talking to her, and, she ended up getting my number, and she had a car, she had all the shit going and all that. And so from that day on, Mac Wayne had a ride anywhere he wanted to go, at any time he wanted to go, and we was gonna go. And we did. And the homies had the car, typical premature Mackin, ran that credit cards out. She, told you obviously she wasn't working her job no more, because she had a job from that point on. And it was to do anything and everything I needed her to do.
He's blind, obviously, so it's almost like a rite of passage to be able to be one of his CNI bitches. So
when I was in the Iraqi boot camp, I decided that I figured out what I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure at first and wasn't gonna let him convince me into anything, but I had to go with what I thought and knew about him and what I knew, so I decided to take the step and put all I had into it.
Didn't have a clue what I was doing when I first came out there. I thought I was gonna be, his old driver and whatnot. But instead, he put me to work. Basically, because the first time he went to jail, so I took over the phone. Started, doing the whole moves to moves. Did that for like a year and a half. He's an asshole. He's an asshole.
My recollection of Wayne when he was in drug court, as much as I genuinely enjoyed Wayne for his personality and his sense of humor, there were some things that I think were remarkable about McWayne. First, he didn't want to acknowledge his blindness.
I started going into stages of what I ended up finding out from a counselor was schizophrenia, where I escaped death, so I thought my soul was like some crazy honing device or something to death, the Grim Reaper chasing me down, and I'd see it in all kinds of different ways and inside all kinds of different people, and for years I was tortured, thinking that I was gonna die by a random serial killer or a robbery, or the drug deal was gonna go bad, and I was just hypochondriac was what a lot of the homies used to call me, because it wasn't just about situations, it was about me, I just went blind, I was spooked when it boils down to it, because I come to find out later, years later, to be like, oh my God, I'm blind. And if I'm thinking that now, I must have just been oblivious then, and that's probably what it was I was blind. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't know it yet.
You don't run across a lot of people like that. You might even run across a lot of blind people. But he is special beyond the blindness, is what I'm trying to say. But he's crazy too. And that's another thing that flips him out, because his eyes is always closed. And you guys got to remember, he lives in this world, I call it Wayne's world, but it's like a metrophysical is what he said that the shit was. And he'll take you there and he'll be like, we'll hear a train go past, and he'll grab me and be like, sleep. Did you hear the train? I heard the train, Wayne. Okay, now go inside the train. Okay, I'm traveling inside the train with you. Okay, now go to the bums arguing over territory space in the back. Okay, I can see it. He said, now go fly off into Jupiter and look at him from a bird's eye view. And I said, damn, I can do that. He said, I live here.
It's like being blind attracts certain things, certain kind of energy or something, it's like my brain turned into like an antenna for this shit, you know what I mean? And you know, I used to use it for negative, you know what I mean? You could use it for positive, anyone could use it. I mean, I guess the moral, what I stand for in life is if I could do it, anybody could do it. And there ain't no excuses because I am 100% blind. And you know, I just use my mind, and I think that's the best sense I got.
I think that the road that Wayne's going down is a road that, you know, it had to be traveled, you know, going through what he went through as a kid and growing up in his teen years, and you know that, you know, him losing his vision and having to learn how to relive his life. You know, I really commend him on that, and it's really remarkable.
I was a nobody. I didn't have a life. I didn't know nothing. I didn't have a dad. My mom was a dope fiend. I was a fucking little kid that was stuck in a little place that knew little about little nothing, and then bang, the universe opened up in my head, and I've been 100 miles and gunning ever since. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, really, if you boil it down to, man, I look at my life before, and it makes me want to, you know, almost cry for even want to talk about this, because I was nothing. It was nobody. It wasn't there. And you gotta stay on your toes, man. When you're blind and you're in this world for real, and you ain't just sitting around being a social security collector, let me tell you, it's not as easy as it looks. I make it look real easy, but I'm trying to tell you right now, man, I try to tell people all the time they'd be fucking dying if they knew half this shit.
In many ways, Wayne's lifestyle doesn't resemble one of a typical blind person. At times, it even appears that his condition allows him to see things that the people around him can't, which often results in Wayne having more power than if he could see, though the power comes at a price.
Shit, I used to be able to drive. The biggest, how could I fucking forget my own personal independence? God damn, let me tell you. You know, my own independence, my own being able to not need a dog or a fucking cane or having to wait on another man. But what it taught me is how to respect the grown man shit. You know what I mean? You gotta, you know, being blind and shit, I can't talk too much shit, because, you know, I know as soon as I throw that first punch, it's going down. You know what I mean? Because I'm the first punch thrower, because that's what it always happens. But, you know, I gotta know. I gotta mind my place in a grown man's world. And learning that in itself will make you a grown man. Yeah, man, I'm not promoting no cigarettes or nothing. I'm trying to quit now. Cigarettes is bad, but a lot of people always wonder, because I get it on a dime. See, everyone's like, oh, you might get it backwards, but you feel this side, and it's got that side, and that side, and that side got the filters for the tobacco. Plus, if you squish it, you can feel the difference between the tobacco part and that. You get it on there, you put the lighter just like that with it, just like this, put up your mouth just like that. Give it a good 2 flick to make sure you're guaranteed, and you're good.
That's cool. Man. How long did it take you to get that down?
I ain't gonna lie, I lit a couple cigarettes backwards before. One time someone passed me the blunt, and right on my lips. I did that twice, never do it again. Always do the heat check, you know what I'm saying?
Seeing Wayne with his kids is, you know, something that is just amazing to me. You know, how he can, you know, manage that. And, you know, like I said, man, you would never even think that he was blind, and, you know, unless you know him. And when he's counting his money and he's like, what's this? What's this? What's this? Or when his phone ring and he say, what's this number? What's this number? You know?
You know, that whole life, you know, swallows your whole everything, you know. That's why when, you know, I ended up having kids and shit and all that, you know, that was where the whole pimping and pandering factor came in, because it, you know, you could really just lay low and just kick back and make a girl do everything, you know, whatever it is, and just I could be with my kids.
I will say ABC.
Okay, well hold on, look, check this out, right? So we're Mac Wayne's kids.
We're Mac Wayne's kids.
And we're really cool.
And we're really cool.
And so is my daddy.
So my daddy.
And all that good stuff.
And all that good stuff.
And hit it with a good West Side.
West Side.
You know?
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. No, you gotta serve it more strong, solid. There you go. Not so weak. Harder. There you go. Come on. Throw knockout punches, boy.
Do you know your daddy can't see?
No.
You don't know your daddy can't see?
No.
I think one of Wayne's motivations when he was here also was the twins that were born in September of 2008, and I saw a lot of pride by McWayne about his children. He promptly brought in photos and again seemed to hunker down and be motivated.
I got cleaned up, and he and I started doing better. This was prior to him even finding out he was going to have babies.
This past year, he started to mellow out, and he's 27 now. I think since the kids were born is when he started winding down.
Wayne's mellowed quite a bit since he's had the kids, and right now I live with the grandkids and their mother, and we get our time with Wayne now because he's busy out doing his stuff, and I'm just really proud of him and amazed. He's a strong person, and I'm proud of him. I look up to him.
Times, and she ended up when I had kids. That was when I really started pressing the subject. Cause I used to think, shit, if you're gonna fuck up, the childhood I had, let's at least give these grandkids a little something, Maybe you could, live like you're a fucking grown woman or something, you know what I mean? And sure as shit, she pulled it out her ass and she got it together, man. I'm proud of her for that. For as far as she has came. She ain't running no business or no crazy wild stuff or nothing like that. So you can figure, we're proud of her for accomplishing getting clean and keeping a stable mind. Shit, imagine that. You know what I mean? I pray every day that she sticks to that. I pray that my kids can know a grandma. Their other grandma's dead. Their other grandpa doesn't exist. And then their other grandpa from my baby's mom's side, he's in prison for the rest of his life.
Though many of Wayne's choices over the years, both before he was blind and after, have been unlawful and immoral, he has consciously been making an effort to put those illegal activities behind him and replace them with healthier choices, like music.
You know what I mean? All that energy I'd have to do all that. A wise man said, he pulled me aside and he said, man, if you were to take all that energy that you use to sell dope and to try to find bitches that, go run around, get you money, if you were to take all that energy into your rapping and your motivation towards that dream, man, you'd be unstoppable. And he was right.
So I finally met the kid and I was like, what's up and this and that, and we actually had recorded a couple songs and they went quick and abnormally well, and right away I was like, this dude's special, this dude's got it, and I don't know what it is, but he's got it.
And so I didn't know about rap. I didn't know he was that good. People were telling him he was good, but I was like, are they just telling him that because they're his friends and they like him, or is he good? And so then I bought him this beat machine, and we were living in an apartment, and he took his closet, and him and his friends made a soundproof booth out of the closet, and he's in there making songs.
And I was like, damn, and I was like, man, have you ever done a show before? And he's like, well, not like a real show. And I was like, do you want to? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, you're about to headline your first show.
All right, then, Boombox 90.7, 2009 Players Ball. What's up, Wayne?
Oh, man, you know what I'm saying? Mac Wayne, Mac Enterprises, you know what I'm saying?
I was just like, man, I can't wait to see what this kid does. I can't wait to hear how he sounds live, because he's sickening in the studio, So, man, we'll see how this turns out live. And so finally, it's the main event. And, when the other rappers would go up, their little crew and their little boys, would take up the front of the stage, a few people. When it was time for Wayne, I'm talking about a sea of people, like 250 people for his first show ever, just swarmed the front of the stage. And it was just packed out, it looked crazy. And his boy leads him up on stage, and I went and sat down by Velvet Jones and Flossie McNulty, and I was like, all right, man, I can't wait to see what this kid does. And he was crying. He's like, okay, is this the mic? Okay, I'm out at the edge of the stage. I'm straight. All right, and this boy walked off. And this dude grabs the mic holding the mic on stage live is two different things than being in the studio. I mean, this kid grabbed the mic like he'd done it a million times, put it right up to his mouth, and just yells at the top of his lungs, hey, this is Mac Wayne, and whoever doesn't like what I'm doing or what I'm about to do, fuck your mother. And we just looked at each other like, this kid's fucking, did he just say what? And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting, and then just rocked it and killed it.
So I'm pleased that he seems to be gaining some professional success with his music. I saw it when he was involved in drug court here. He was spending time, even then, with his music. He was actively working with a friend at KSER radio station with a program called Boombox. And it seems that he's getting a measure of success that's well-deserved for his music.
You know, I was involved in a lot of local music stuff here in Seattle and this and that, and you know, Wayne was, you know, a rapper and blind rapper, and he talked about this and that, and I said, okay, well, he can't really be doing all this shit he's talking about. He can't really be doing this and that, and you know, after meeting him and being with him and hanging out with him and just kind of picking his brain a little bit, man, it really was that.
I don't normally listen to that kind of music, but he's one of the few people that actually tells a story every time he raps. And they're always something you can relate to. And I truly believe this is because of his memories. Yes, he might not be able to see anymore, but the wisdom that he's got now supersedes that in so many ways.
And unlike a lot of these cats, let me tell you this, if you owned Blind and Battered, every single thing he's talking about on that record is absolutely real. He's done it.
Yeah, and I ain't never sold my soul. I've been interrogated and I ain't never told a soul. I'll never fold, I'll never mold. I'm staying polished up like some nice white gold.
Also, I'm the DE agent questioning him and throwing the papers in his face at the table.
Oh yeah, that's right, you did throw paper. See, it's funny the things you forget as a blind man about your own music video.
Right. Anyway, no, man, everybody's favorite part of that video is when you're in the Caprice with the driving with the blind cane out the window.
Oh yeah.
That's so sick.
That was all planned out, by the way, for
Yeah.
strong marketing purposes from a young mind. In town, man, back at the Boombox in Everett, man, getting ready to turn this shit back around and go to where it's Sunday. You know
He
what I
said
mean?
ship, by the way.
Yes.
Bruce,
I
if
did.
you're listening,
It was
he
ship.
said turn the ship back around. That's
Ship.
the manager of the station. Bruce, he said ship, not the other one.
Yeah,
He said he's going to turn the ship around, so it's all good. He's the most talented rapper I've ever personally worked with. And, man, the dude's the shit. And nobody knows better than me, because I've been doing this since 1986.
And I say,
Has your life ever been so fucked up that you just wanted to die? Go shoot at the cops, that way it's not a suicide. Go to the top of the building, jump off and see if I can fly. Look in my eyes, in the inside I've died. So I don't care about the interior of a ride or its rim size. It's about who you are inside. Inside my mind, man, it's light all the time. They think of blindness or darkness and it enlighten my mind. Out of sight, out of mind, so yeah, most of the time I'm fine. But then someone reminds me when they disrespect my mind. I must make it look easy because believe me, they be dying. They be like, Wayne, take it easy. I'm like, believe me, I'm trying. But shit's greasy. If you really read the signs, you could even be blind. You ain't gotta read the Seattle Times to see the season of the sickest in this evil, wicked times. Ain't nobody trying to see nobody shine. They might as well be blind. Some people would wait in line for your problems while you whine. You don't want no problems of mine. See, that's just people's problem all the time. People, didn't we learn in preschool that we don't cut in line? It's like a prison in here. Been here for 10 years. Really 9, but in my mind, dang near. Man, don't nobody want to hang in here. Behind the blindfold, you can see the world crystal clear, and it's a nightmare. I tell them wear a blindfold for a week before you even speak. Talk is cheap. I can't see, but watch how you talking to me. I can feel them watching me. They don't feel me, obviously. My first mind's killing, but I've been trying to think logically. Either get a deal or get killed. Bullets lodged in me. In the traffic lodge over a key, somebody robbing me. I still got all my jewelry speaking about their robbery. Yeah, I'm a problem, and see, ain't nobody solving me. Raised up in poverty, that's probably the cause of me. The police out here creeping, so we out here rocking cautiously. Get it for the low, but the price of life is costing me. Life is priceless. It ain't supposed to cost a fee. I had to fight for this. Ain't no one the boss of me. Been fighting with the devil. Tell him to hell with what he offers me. Tell him get off of me. I can feel him hawking me. It's lonely in my soul. Please somebody talk to me. Just to talk to me. I don't really want a thing. I gave away everything. Just trying to chase this dream. If you was to take it away, I wouldn't have anything. And I'm telling you, man, I put that on everything. I fucking put up everything. It's like a prison in here. Been here for 10 years. Really 9, but in my mind, dang near. Man, don't nobody want to hang in here. Behind the blindfold, you can see the world crystal clear, and it's a nightmare. I'm from the rainy state, but still ain't washed the pain away. Washington State, little place called Everett is where I stay. Last name Charles and my first name's Ye, cause I'm dope. Like some coke from the Bay. They ask me how I know, I tell you no way. This grown man biz, tell them kids to go play. They used to play on the playgrounds, but yo, the playgrounds these days is where the hustle's getting paid. And I mean, I'm saying, well, I ain't saying nothing, I'm guilty as OJ. But I mean, really, how many people finna overdose today? Shout out to my mama, she been sober 52 days. You thinking it's over, God gives you 52 ways. Some people should be happy, some people ain't even got legs. Some people can't see, some people dying of AIDS. Little Timmy's dying of cancer, and he's only age 8. So, wait. What was that we was all just trying to say? You feel me?
Nice.
That Mac Wayne shit.
I ain't even heard that one, Wayne.
Come on, man.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one.
Me, nigga.
Yes.
Told you. That shit's filthy.
Left, go left.
Thanks, you guys.
Go right.
Thanks, you guys.
Go right. Keep straight.
I'm gonna do it like I'm listening.
Keep straight.
Very good.
Go left, cause you could have wanted to put a billboard. Go straight ahead. Go straight ahead.
To the left a little bit.
And went on the run. First stop, Oakland, California.
I have a material witness on an aggravated battery with a handgun and
A $250,000 warrant was issued for his arrest. While police were searching for him high and low, he recorded a song and sent it to the local media and radio stations back in Everett, Washington. The song is entitled, Catch Me If You Can. This taunted the police. The self-proclaimed Ray Charles of rap was arrested after a multi-state manhunt in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Prosecutors were forced to drop the robbery charge after the woman's story changed regarding Mac Wayne's involvement. Mac Wayne gets 2 years for being a felon with a firearm, but doesn't show up for jail, and he goes on the run again. In the words of the Urban Daily's senior editor, Jerry Barrow, you can't make this stuff up. You sure can't. And in this case, why would you even want to?
I'm in the game show, tell them what did he win. Behind door number 1, shit's getting kicked in. Door number 2, still number 2. They don't know the hell I've been through. I beat the hell out of you. But I'd rather beat this beat up instead and get my bread. That's what the hell I'm fixed to do.
I'm on the run. Now catch me if you can. Catch me if you can. Catch me if you can.
Detectives at my mama's house. Baby's mama's wildin' out. Made the front page, yeah, they say he out there wildin' out.
I'm on the run.
Bitch.
Now catch me if you can. Catch me if you can.
Bitch.
Catch me if you can.